Michael, a huge agenda today, and first one off the rank was 22 Mountain View Drive, Shannon Vale, a redevelopment there that never got a chance. It was knocked on the head.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is another case, and they're coming up more constantly. And one of the reasons why we're pushing to get the regional plan reassessed as well as, and wanting the staff to look at areas like this when it comes to our own plan. Blocks like this, to me, I personally think they are absolutely suitable for rural blocks. It's a 16 hectare block. It's way under the 40 hectare agricultural block. It's surrounded by properties that are already broken apart, some down to 0.6 of a hectare.
We need housing.
We need housing stock. So we're being, unfortunately, we have our hands tied, and these things need to be changed. As councillors, we only have certain abilities and limits of power. The planning scheme is our guiding document, and it's got to be something exceptional and special that we have to be able to to break those planning scheme rules, especially the state one. There was an issue, I think it was last year or the year before, when Mareeba was subdividing some land like that, and they got a big slap across the hand by the state government and were told that's it, you can't do it anymore, it's against the rural plan. So it's really important that we work with the state government, get this regional plan sorted as well, and get our own plan fixed. As I said, it's a one size fits all shoe at the moment, and that's not the case. There's been a couple of applications come through this year already, and I know there's more to come. They're all in the same boat. They've got these large rural blocks that aren't big enough for cane paddocks. They're not big enough to run as a commercial farm, they're too small to run as a commercial farm, but they're not big. They're too big for just having a residential property. So, as I said, this block today, it's got 12 cows on it from what I saw. Lucky cows. They've got a great life and a fantastic paddock, but that could be some rural blocks for houses, and that's stuff that we absolutely need in this shire. So
we need
just
some
need to
action.
Get working. We need some action. Unfortunately, red tape city, as always. We're having to battle through it.
Okay, and then we go to the resort complex, Port Douglas Road. This just isn't going nowhere.
Well, red tape city, as we said, here we go again. Unfortunately, we have a planning scheme in place, and as I said, I was quite hard on the fact that this is only a new planning scheme. This was only done in 2018. So, the residents and ratepayers of this shire, if they don't believe that we're doing the right thing by this planning scheme, they should have spoke up. And when we do public consultations, people need to actually acknowledge what we're doing and participate, so that we are doing what the majority wants, rather than the ones that just constantly do put in submissions to things like the planning scheme. So we are stuck with the planning scheme that we've got. It has very firm guidelines on what we can do and how we can do it. And unfortunately, this particular development sits well outside a lot of the provisions and the outcomes that are required by our planning scheme. So to go against it, we open ourselves up to lots of issues. And as the planner said, the parking that's being provided is well under what the planning scheme asks for. And we could end up with cars the whole way down Port Douglas Road, parked on the grass areas, where there's not enough car parking provided. So they're things we have to look at. You've got the old QT resort, I can't remember what it's called now. Sorry, I've gone blank.
Oaks.
That's it. We've got Oaks Lagoon right next door. They've got buildings that come up to the right distance of their boundary, and then they suddenly have this 20-metre building right next door to their 2-bedroom units, or the little 2-storey units. So, we have to compare those things and consider everyone. And unfortunately, it just didn't fit in with our planning scheme. And I certainly hope the developer can acknowledge where we're coming from. I certainly hope his dream of having a property that's an exclusive luxury resort doesn't disappear completely.
Well, I'm sure it's going to look better than what it looks like at the moment. It's a bit of an eyesore now.
Well, unfortunately, it's been an eyesore for as long as I can remember. The resort that was going to go in there, of course, went broke, and it sat there with the concrete pillars for all these years. And has been nothing but an eyesore. And so, as I said, when I first heard that they were going to develop this with no less than a Fairmont hotel, I thought, wow, this is an absolute dream for a new mayor to have a quality development like this come through. But again, unfortunately, the red tape of the planning scheme, and I was again quite hard in the meeting on the fact that I've read some things on Facebook over the weekend that were appalling, absolutely appalling. This is not the planning staff. This is not closed-minded idiots that don't know what they're doing and all the comments that were made. These are very intelligent, well-trained people that are assessing a planning scheme that was approved, and they're just giving the facts on that. And we have to remember that, and unfortunately, it's gone the way it has.
Okay, we move on to domestic violence or community housing unit development in Mossman. This is much needed.
It certainly is. It's something that, as Councillor Nolly said, we've been working on for quite some time. The staff have done a great job in doing all the reports that were required to finally get this funding. Council purchased the land, so we've put our part in. We've got the funding to build the facility, and this is now putting out for the tenders to get the people to actually build it. So hopefully in a short period we'll have the facility built. I believe it's a 3-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit, and we'll be able to help some of these people that desperately need it. At the moment, a lot of these ladies are shipped down to Cairns, and it's not fair on the kids because they can't go to the normal schools. They're not near their friends and their close family connections as well, so they're having to be, it causes a lot of mental stress as well as the heartache they're going through at the time. So it's so important we have something local that can assist.
And that's just over $547,000 involved there. $261,000 involved with a contract for sewerage pump station switchboard. I know what a pump station is. How does the switchboard work?
Very good question. I assume it moves things around and turns things on and off.
It's sort of like a thingamajig.
It's a thingamajig that we have to have, and that's the most important thing. When it comes to sewerage and all those types of things, they are necessity. I know they're not pretty things that we like to talk about, but they're necessities. And I think if the sewerage wasn't working, we'd certainly be hearing about it, and that's why we need to spend the money we do on these projects. Landfill,
waste, cartage and disposal. And one of the councillors, I think it was Lisa Scomazon, said just didn't realise how much money is spent on, getting crap away. 900,000, nearly $1 million.
Absolutely, and this is the reason why everyone's been pushing so hard on recycle, reuse, because we knew this was coming. The tip, basically, as we used to call it, the refuge area, is full. It's as simple as that. We can't put any more rubbish there. In December, we have to close it off completely, which means everything that goes to the tip needs to be trucked somewhere else. Unfortunately, with all the new EPA rules and regulations and what the government legislations are, it's impossible to open a new one. So we're having to find alternative methods, which is the one in the Mariba that we'll be using, but everything has to be shipped there, and that comes at a cost. So we're really going to be pushing hard with our message as far as the recycle, reuse, and unfortunately it does show in people's rates bill when they see their waste bill. It's gone up quite substantially over the last couple of years because the state government's been introducing these measures to make this happen. So I recommend people as much as possible have a look at the document. As Lisa said, it's expensive to move rubbish. So the less you have to put in that green bin, the better. If you can put it into compost, put it into compost. If you can recycle. If it's something that's worthwhile, take it to the scrap shack or a second-hand shop and resell it. But clothing, all those things, give them to charity shops so they can be reused.
Paws and Claws shop at Mossman.
Well, I have to declare, being the president, not Paws and Claws, I can't just say them, but all charity shops, absolutely. And even if they sometimes they're a bit scrappy, other places do take them and they cut them up and use them for rags for painters and all those things. So they can be reused. Don't put it in the rubbish because that's going to cost us all money. Foreshore
management plan: Wonga Beach, Newell Beach, Cooya Beach, 4 Mile Beach, Oak Beach. Lisa Scomazon, the Deputy Mayor, was a little bit concerned here because, once again, we'll use that phrase, not one size fits all. You have to have revegetation, but you have to do it sensibly, and in all cases it's not revegetation.
Yeah, it's something that I had concerns with, and I've spent the last couple of days talking to the staff about that exact fact. There's areas that I know of that are windows, as we call them, that have been there since the 50s. And under this plan, it looks like they'll be revegetated. And talking to the staff, it's like, no, that's not the case. We'll do community consultation, and we wouldn't do that to people. The rest, but it's not in writing, and we all know these days if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And so it is a concern that there could be areas there that are currently windows where people enjoy the view or people have access to the beach areas that could suddenly be fenced and revegetated. And is that what the community actually wants? So we have to make sure we get this right, and I think it's worthwhile taking it back to one more workshop just to consider some of these areas. In particular, there's one in Port Douglas now on 4 Mile Beach that was pristine green grass, and it used to be used quite often for weddings. And more recently, it's been let go back to this new re-veg, and it's looking like quite a mess and can't be used for weddings, etc. And under this scheme, it would be revegetated. And to me, that's not what we want. This is a good a position as what Little Cove is for weddings, and it could be a great asset for council if they regrass it and make it look really pristine. We'd be able to use that for weddings. So that's something that I'd be pushing for when discussing this as we go through, to ensure that that area can remain a coconut plantation where it is, with nice green grass, be able to use it for weddings, etc., and not have it locked into this revegetation because it falls into the wrong zone on a map.
FNQ ROC Strategic Regional Advisory Group, Lisa Scommers elected to that?
Absolutely. This group has been formed as part of one of the FNQ ROC groups or boards that sits under the main board to discuss waste. We have our roads group that, of course, has done some great work on roads and gets us some wonderful prices that reduce because we buy in bulk rather than each council having to buy their own. And what we're doing is we're forming a group to discuss waste and how we can deal with this waste situation, because, as we just said before, the price is constantly going up. So is there a way that all the councils can bond together and do something together as a large group, so small councils like us don't have to suffer the burden of going out to individual contracts? So it'll be very exciting to see what this waste group comes up with, and what things they look at and how they develop a process moving forward for all councils to take advantage of. Douglas
Chamber of Commerce Resource and Performance Agreement, I think around about $40,000, 21 to 2024. Chamber of Commerce for a while wasn't travelling all that well, but they seem to be kicking a few goals lately.
Well, that was the intention. When I came in after the election, I wanted to get them some funding to really give them a kickstart. And I think that we gave them $50,000 that first year, and that was the intention of doing that. The chamber, we had one in Port Douglas and we had one in Mossman. The Mossman one folded quite a few years ago, and it just became then the Douglas Chamber of Commerce, and it was based in Port. And again, they're all full-time working people. They've all got their own businesses, so it's very hard for them to try and get out and do things and try and generate interest and generate members when they're all working their own businesses. So giving them that $50,000 last year, and it allowed them to do some things with it to generate income, or generate interest, I should say, like having the expo and the different forums that they had, and the social media trainings that they did, and of course the Christmas street in Port Douglas, we had the Santa in the shop and all those sorts of things that allowed them to do it. And I think they're great things to encourage businesses in the Shire, and I really want the chamber to be a strong lobby group for the businesses. They should be coming to council regularly to tell us what the businesses are doing and what the businesses need. They need to be going to state levels as well, and going to forums, and getting that momentum so they become a good solid body for the businesses in this Shire. And by giving them this token funding, I mean, $20,000 realistically isn't much. If you look at the expos, I think that costs about $10,000 alone for that. Hopefully they'll be able to generate some more interest, get those members in. It's so important that they get members. The businesses also have to support the chamber. It's one thing for council to do it, but those businesses, they need to also start supporting chamber, becoming a member, paying a membership fee to allow the chamber to do what they need to do to help support them.
Mossman State High School, $500 for sponsorship. They've got an awards presentation on the 17th of November, so good stuff there. Then we moved on to, oh boy, the RV Park, Mossman business case. And Roy Zamataro dead set against an RV park. We're hearing, he did question, I think did he question you or the council over figures of what people spend in the Shire? And you sort of said, well, that's not quite right.
Well, the reports that the staff have written are factual reports, and they do their research. Now, I also know myself that I've spoken to these bodies, the RV body, and I've also spoken to other mayors and councillors throughout different areas that have gone through this strategy, and they absolutely confirm the figures that the income that these people bring generates jobs, it generates businesses. It's absolutely worth doing, and I think an RV park in Mossman, personally myself, is going to be a godsend for Mossman. It will absolutely generate great jobs and great income for this little town that at the moment during the day it does really well. At lunchtimes, come night time, it's quite quiet. And bringing these extra people in will generate business, and that's what we really want now, to start getting these jobs happening and getting people back into Mossman and creating that buzz of an atmosphere that it is our CBD. So looking at the process on how we go about doing it, and that's the issue. It has to be the right block of land. And the RV Association has said that it needs to be within walking distance to the CBD. These people usually bring their big RVs in that don't normally fit into caravan parks. They want somewhere that doesn't have toilet facilities. They don't need it. They're completely self-contained. All they need is a dumping pit and a hose to fill up their water tank. And they'll park where they do, and they walk everywhere they go. So it's got to be something that's close to town. It's got to be big enough to hold a sustainable amount of RVs as well. And I think it's important that the staff are able to look at all options and bring a report back to us with as much detail as possible. If it means council, from my perspective, if we have to purchase the right block of land, by selling another block of land somewhere else to fund it, I think that's worthwhile to do to ensure that the businesses in Mossman get this economic boost that we believe they need. So we'll move forward. It's we were there today. We saw what happened. We'll wait and see what comes next.
Yeah, another delay.
Well, it's a delay, but councillors have to be sure of what they're signing up the community for, and they've got to be confident in it. I think it's important that they get all the information, and I'm sure the staff will prevail and give it to them.
Wonga Beach Caravan Park Caretakers Management Agreement. Steve Mattison and Jackie Thomas will take over as caretakers, and as I understand, there's a little bit of history with this, and it's good to see these two guys very much supported in this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a couple of years ago we went through a process of looking at all the leases and the agreements, and the Wonga Caravan Park came to an end of its agreement, and the person that was there declined to reapply. So it sat there for a while without having a proper caretaker as such, and there was lots of issues. We were constantly getting complaints from neighbours and the police and people going in there that weren't paying and doing all sorts of issues. So we went through a process of finding some a management couple to run it, and that's turned out really well. We're getting lots of good comments now from everyone around that area and the caravan park itself that it's being managed appropriately. So now we're going into a longer contract.
Port Shorts Film Festival, you've spoken to us at length on this before, so we know you support it, and it is a great festival, and so that was carried unanimously to support them once again. Also, Taste Port Douglas, which is coming up, $10,000 in kind. The Deputy Mayor was a little bit worried about this, that money was being diverted from other parts of council to provide this $10,000 because it wasn't actually budgeted for.
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't in our initial budgets because we didn't know about it. We've always funded Taste before in the past when they had their big festivals. And I'm really excited to see it come back again. It's a great opportunity for us to see some great international quality chefs that are going to come to this region, and this is only just a small portion of what the whole festival is going to be. And I think it was important the council was part of this festival and absolutely got involved and did some funding to ensure that it's going to be a great event. I really want these businesses to be able to do the best they can to prove themselves. As I said, we're coming up to Carnival again next year. It would be great to have a local group do the longest lunch for Carnival. And this will give them the experience and the knowledge and the ability to see how they go, and that's really important. So I understand where Councillor Scomerson was coming from. It wasn't in our budget this year, but I know the accounting staff do wonders, and they would have saved $10,000 somewhere along the line on one of the projects that was done, and they can reallocate it and reshift it around. And usually in November we have our budget reassessment anyway, so they can bring something to us to shift those figures around. But I certainly believe that it's not going to increase our deficit by anything. The
COVID relief fee reduction for Port Douglas Market stallholders. Councillor Nolan Zamataro were a bit concerned about it. What they were suggesting is that people should not just turn up. In other words, if they're not making money, not turn up. What you were putting forward, what the motion was put forward, was to reduce the stall fees. So how does it work here?
So we have a two-tier level as far as the fees go. There's the fee that covers from March through to January, which is of course when it's busier, and then over the low season when it's a little bit wetter and there's less tourists around, we reduce it slightly. From a discussion we had, we thought that it'd be appropriate, because things are so quiet, and we were getting requests as well for it, to bring the low season early. So just bring it forward a couple of months so that the stall holders can get a lower rate and make it a little bit easier for them. My concern, as I said in the meeting, was that I don't want to encourage stall holders not to come. To me, the market is a tourism event; it's a tourism asset. People come here for our markets.
Could look a bit sparse.
Well, it could. We get a lot of people that come up from Cairns and from Coranda, all sorts of areas. They come here to see our markets, and if they turn up and half the markets aren't there, it's like, well, I won't be coming back next time until it's busy season again. This is a waste of time. So, and I don't want to encourage that. So I was hoping that just by giving the reduction, we'll at least allow these store holders the want to continue to keep coming up here and getting some reduction for the ability to do it. But I listened to what Councillor Zamataro and Councillor Nolly said, and I hope that the store holders will take advantage of the discount rather than the not turning up. But for those store holders that it just financially is not worth it, at least they've got that option to not come. But as I said, I don't want to see a sparse market where people go down there and go, oh God, why is it famous? I don't understand. So it's important that we still have a good amount of stalls there, and that it's still a great tourism asset.
We're getting all through this. We're near the end. Daintree Ferry Advisory Committee, what will they do?
Well, last time we had an issue with the ferry and we had to close it for the period whilst it was taken out of the water to have repairs done to it. It was a check. They had to check it to AMSA, I think it was. A lot of the locals said, well, how come you didn't come to us for advice? We're the ones that use it on a daily basis. You've made decisions for us without even consulting us what we think is the best. So we came up with the thought that we got a Daintree Ferry Advisory Group. So it'll be a mixture of people across the board that use the ferry regular, whether it be tourism groups, locals, representatives from the Daintree Marketing Co-op, TPDD, TTNQ, all these groups that facilitate the use of it on a daily basis. Businesses, there could be plumbing businesses, the petrol business. This is what the terms of reference is going to work out, who are the appropriate people to be on it. So when issues arise like that, we've at least got a body this is what's happening, this is what we need to do, tell us what you think is the best thing. And then a report can be drawn up by the staff giving us advice, or the Daintree Ferry Advisory Group suggests that this is the best way moving forward on how to deal with this issue. So it gives us some groundwork on consultation basically, in a direct form, so that we can make decisions with the advice of the actual users rather than just making it ourselves.
Well, you're running it now, of course. And options for council to develop retirement-style living houses. Councillor Zamataro says council shouldn't be getting involved in this sort of stuff.
Well, council should be getting involved in this stuff, I believe. We've been going through this argument now for way too many years. We've got ladies who've waited 20 years to get a full facility for aged care. Now, I don't want to wait another 20 years and these ladies have to move away to other areas or pass away first before they get the reality of seeing actual suitable living for retirees. And there's a bit of confusion there between building a retirement village and building retirement housing, which is what the suggestion that Councillor Scolson put forward and why I agreed to it. A lot of these retirement village groups have assessed it and they've looked at it and said it's too small. We can't make money out of it. But what they do is they keep the land. They don't sell the land. You just buy the house to live in, and then you have to sell the house, but they constantly buy the land, and it's a funding type stream the whole time, and there's not enough lots that can be built on that to make it a financially viable product on the constant streaming. If council was to look at developing the land, we could subdivide it ourselves. We could have a developer build the units on it for us, and then we could choose 75% of it we could sell to people to buy to live, and the other quarter we could then have just rent it, so people that can't afford to buy can at least still rent in a retirement type area where it's a 50s plus zone type thing, so the people that are there are all in the same age bracket. They're not going to have screaming children next door, etc. They're only going to be small, easy to maintain, easy to clean, and as far as the works go, we have our own gardeners, we have our own maintenance crews, we have our own, there's things that council can do as council property, and the rental side of it could assist in paying for that stuff. So we're not looking at making a burden for council. We're not looking at using ratepayer money as an expense just to cater for retirees. We're looking at it as a business option, and I think it's important that council, whilst also looking at these other options to see if there's a group that can do retirement facilities such, we look at it to see if we can do retirement living so we can get this happening. This has been going on for way too long. It needs to happen. I want it to start. The sooner we get a shovel in the ground, the better, and start getting appropriate living in both Mossman and Port Douglas, not just Mossman as well. And I think that's what Lisa had in it. There's a block in Craiglee that'd be suitable to have, a good amount of small 1 and 2 bedroom units for retirees, and offer a perfect area for them to live in Port as well. To me it makes sense.
I think it's a fantastic idea, and it would be an asset for council. And like you said, you've got the gardeners, you've got all the upkeep people, which normally people would have to pay for. You guys have got it in-house.
That's exactly right. So, as I said, the rental side of it can pay for that type, be an income stream for council. I think we can get some good prices for those units as well, and appropriate prices for people to move into. I agree with Councillor Noel in the sense that is valuable land, but our retirees are valuable people. They've put into this community for the last 20, 30 years. They deserve to have appropriate living, and that's what I want to offer them.